YouTubians, it's Mr. White Gloves here at Splash Page Comics. Wow, what a spectacular time I had at the premiere of Venom. Tell you what, beautiful, beautiful time. Got to meet Sam De La Rosa, hung out with him in Monster Lair Comics the whole weekend, and did an interview that you're fixing to see. Was at the Venom premiere, and it was just a wonderful movie. Really enjoyed it. Did the video, and got it back, downloaded it, and a lot of it's blurry. Yeah, a lot of it's blurry. But after long debating whether I ought to air the video or not, I've decided I'm going to go ahead and air it. Because it was just such a great interview with Sam De La Rosa, and he took the time to sit there and do a long video interview with me, and I just can't not air it. I've talked to some people and showed some people, and they said, man, go ahead and you know, put it out there. So I'm going to, and I have to apologize. I have a new camera set up, and for some reason the autofocus focused in. Then when I sat down, it went out of focus, and a lot of the interview is just slightly out of focus. So please bear with me. I apologize, but this still on the good side. This is a great interview, man. Great interview. Got to hang out with Sam. Sam was a wonderful person, wonderful guy, nice as you ever could be. And so let's go ahead and roll that interview. Let's roll them. Hello YouTubians, it's Mr. White Gloves here at Splash Page Comics. I'm here with Sam De La Rosa, and we are been covering the premiere of Venom Lethal Protector. Wow, what a movie. I mean, his booth has been just crowded with people, signings, and we've been up here 4 days and we've had a blast. How do you feel so far?
You know, I'm surprised, but happily surprised that got a lot of interest. Movie's getting generating a lot of good reviews from the people who actually go and enjoy the movie.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I've seen it twice, guys, and I tell you what, I'll probably end up seeing it again. So we're gonna get things started off, and I got some questions here.
All right.
And we want to start out about how old were you when you started drawing and, you know, finding an interest in, you know, doing your art?
You know, just as a little kid, I see most kids draw when they're in elementary school, preschool. I just kept it up, you know, I just kept it up grade after grade after grade. You know, I used to like to draw exotic things, you know, deep sea, you know, animals, dinosaurs, just all kinds of stuff. Then I saw superheroes, just transitioned over to draw the colorful, exciting characters.
You said deep sea characters. Do we see an Aquaman in your future?
You know, I drew seahorses, so I just forgot the Aquaman.
That is cool. You know, being at that age, at that young age, What made you transition over to comics other than, you know, maybe wall art or being a painter or, you know, something like that, an obscure artist?
Yeah, I like artwork because, you know, it got you noticed, so I like that. I got noticed from my students and my teachers, and specifically comic book artwork. It was just more exciting, you know, and I like the stories, characters doing unusual things with their powers, and a lot of them were good stories. They had morals, you know, good guys over bad guys, and I like the writing, especially at Marvel. I really enjoyed the writing of mostly, you know, Stan Lee and Roy Thomas, later on Denny O'Neil and others. So I just love the characters.
Yeah, that's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the characters at Marvel. To me, it was so much easier to read Marvel than it was DC at the time. It was like Marvel was like everyday life and what was going on, and it just kind of fell into that niche for me.
Yeah, it flowed a lot easier for me. The DC characters in comic books, they just seemed a little more stoic, and Marvel characters were more, like you say, everyday life situations, more natural, and I guess I could identify, or most anyone can identify with that. Especially Spider-Man, Peter Parker, teenager getting powers and dealing with school situations. So I identified with that.
Yeah, I identified it too when I was young. I mean, that was one of the first characters, that and the Hulk. Now, tell us how your first work at Marvel was. Were you a little, nervous when you first turned it in? I mean, was it a huge challenge? What were some of the challenges?
I wasn't nervous at all because in the course of, just practicing to draw comics and stuff, I wound up doing lots of artwork for amateur publications. So, and I've been a commercial artist since 1974. Wow. I didn't get into Marvel and DC till 1982. So, I was comfortable with artwork, and Marvel comic books was just, a little bit different type of artwork. So I just eased into it and was comfortable.
Well, that's great. I mean, as we can see now, you're real comfortable with your artwork. It just flows throughout the pages, and I just love it. It's just awesome, man. It's just awesome. What was your first work at Marvel? Your published work?
Yeah, I started at DC, and I did a few books for them, and then I was at a comic convention in, I think, El Paso, and there were a couple of comic book artists there, Bob Layton and Michael Golden, and they saw my artwork, and I guess they took it back, their experience with me. And when Bob Layton needed help on an assignment at Marvel, told his editor about me, and they were for it. And I got my first work because of Bob Layton and editor Mark Grunwald. They were just familiar with my work and asked me to do some stuff for them.
And a legend was born right then and there. A legend was born. What was it easier working for Marvel or DC, or is there a lot of differences between the two companies as far as the creative, the editors, and and such what like that?
There's a lot of different personalities at both companies. It was just smooth for me, both at DC and at Marvel. No issues at all whatsoever. So I enjoyed Marvel more because as a kid I liked their comic books more.
Yeah. And
their superheroes a little bit more. DC has some great iconic characters, but I just leaned more towards Marvel. And then I found that, hey, Marvel's comic books sell a little bit more. And the royalty program had begun with help from Jim Shooter. And it paid extra money besides your page rate, and most Marvel books paid royalties. So just transitioned over to more Marvel.
Yeah, there in the early years, it was kind of tough for these artists back in the 30s and 40s. I mean, they say the word starving artist. Well,
I still call myself a starving artist, because I don't work for a company. I just work for myself, so I make my own work. So I don't mind calling myself a starving artist.
There you go. There you go. Well, you ever thought about going back and doing another Venom series if they called you back?
No, not at all, because they just don't pay enough money. They pay about half of what I used to get.
Oh,
and
wow.
and even that was still a lot of work. So unless I got a page rate that is probably double what they're paying their best artists right now, I don't feel I need to do stuff. I've already done a lot of stuff. Now, what's cool is covers. So I wouldn't be opposed to doing a variant cover here or there, just doing the complete artwork for that. But I haven't approached any company with that because, what I do keeps me just extremely busy. So.
Well, maybe they'll see this and they'll give you a ring on the old telephone, and maybe you'll get to do a variant cover. So, back when you started drawing, what people influenced you the most? I mean, what artists or even writers did you look up to and go, wow, and kind of look at their artwork and imagine, and your hero?
While I lean towards Marvel, I was aware of the other comic book companies. There was DC Comics, there was Dell, there was Charlton, and I enjoyed the work that artists were doing for those companies. Even Warren magazines with Creepy, Eerie,
Right.
Vampirilla, they all had a lot of good artists, and many were doing work for both Marvel and DC. So the artists that have the most influence on me are the ones that whose books I picked up in the early '60s, and I feel the same way now. I was right the first time. I picked up Jack Kirby. I like Jack Kirby.
Right.
I like Kurt Swan. I like Al Williamson. I like all the classics. George Tuska, Pat Boyette from Charlton. I like a lot of artists, and I haven't changed my mind. They were good when I was in elementary school, and once I became a professional, I was still right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, how can you not be right with that list of artists? With the Venom movie out, were you able to collaborate with any of the producers or people that made the movie at all on any of the scenes?
They don't involve any of the, as I understand, the creators that had anything to do with the comic book versions of that. Besides Stan Lee, he makes cameos in every movie. But take, for instance, the creators of Venom are David McLeany and Todd McFarlane. So they didn't go to them to ask them anything about Venom, as far as I know. So they just don't involve the comic book people. They got their own creative people working on the movie. So it's a totally separate industry. But with the Venom movie, the basis for that is my work on Lethal Protector. So they just looked at those books and transitioned that work into the movie, minus, of course, Spider-Man.
Yeah, and like I said, I've seen the movie, and I'm not going to give any spoilers out, but I really think the movie did well justice without Spider-Man. I mean, it was introducing Venom on his own and setting things up for probably 2 or 3 more movies.
Yeah, so at the end of the movie, there's a scene that leads to, the next movie with another major Spider-Man character.
That's right, and you got to watch the movie, and don't get up and leave before the credits end, because there's a lot more. There's 2 ending credit scenes. The last one's a lot longer, but the first one, you've got to watch that one, because that one's real important, real important. Was there one book that you just loved doing, and one book you just kind of disliked doing?
Yes. So easily, Venom Lethal Protector #1 is my favorite. It's got Spider-Man. It's my favorite character. Venom became my favorite villain once he was introduced 30 years ago. It used to be like the classic Green Goblin for the longest time.
Yeah.
But I just like the look of Venom, like his personality, his character. So it's been Venom Lethal Protector #1. That's my favorite work, my favorite cover that I got to work on, my favorite series. Now, as far as books that I really didn't enjoy doing, I like working with all different artists, collaborating with different artists, but certain subject matters and certain characters are very difficult. So I worked on Star Trek, very difficult. Worked on Star Wars, difficult. G.I. Joe, same thing, for the same reason. They've got a lot of characters. Each one has individual attire and accessories. There's a lot of background machinery and settings. So that kind of stuff just takes a long time, a lot longer than a Spider-Man or Venom book, because of the settings of those comic books.
Is it because of the 3-point perspective and a lot of slide rule work, or
It is because of a lot of technical work. Spaceships, guns, G.I. Joe fortresses, and airships and tanks and all that. That just takes a whole lot of time than just free drawing, finishing some work.
Yeah, I could see that, because some of the backgrounds in those books, I mean, you could spend hours and hours or even days on the backgrounds of those books.
I have certainly have spent a whole lot of hours just on backgrounds, more so than the main characters. So definitely took me a whole lot of time.
Well, we've talked about some of your favorite artists, so that was the next question you covered. So we're going to go. When you first decided to become an artist, what did you first start drawing? I mean, was it stick characters? Was it flowers? Or
No, like I said, I've been drawing, animals and creatures and things like that, and then just transitioned to people with superpowers and capes and tights, muscles. Just a smooth transition that I enjoyed, because they were doing extraordinary things. They weren't just walking across, they were flying or jumping or leaping, so a lot more exciting.
Well, what do you, as far as when you draw a character, what do you feel like I know some people have problem with feet, some people have problem with hands, do you have any, niche that you just say, well, it's not right, let's erase this, let's try it again, anything like that?
Most of everything I draw, I feel it's not right. But I try my best and I do the best I can. And then, of course, like if I look at it, later, maybe a few days or years later, I see things that maybe I didn't see or catch the first time. Like, hey, these feet are just way too big, or, the pose is just a little too awkward. Yeah, there's always going to be things like that. I'm just never satisfied. Nothing is ever perfect. So I just tell people, my drawings are cartoons. I draw cartoons. So, it's based on real people, but I don't draw realistically. I like to think I draw fun.
Right. So. Well, they say, you're your worst critic, so, that comes with everything in life.
It is true in my case. Yeah.
Well, okay. Do you see any changes coming in the Marvel Universe that would take us by surprise?
Mr. White Shoes. To
Gloves.
be honest, I'm sorry, Mr. White Gloves.
I do have white shoes.
I was thinking of my white shoes. I do not keep up with current trends in comic books, because I'm just busy working. I do a whole lot of shows. I do a whole lot of drawings for people. So I just don't have a stack of books that are must-reads for me. It's much easier to get a book and kind of flip through it and get the gist of things. But I'm a visual person, so I more so enjoy the visuals than reading, because I just don't have the time.
Just don't have the time. Well, I can understand, because some of the drawings you've got are just amazing. I can just imagine how much time it takes you to do it.
I'm slow. I am slow.
Well, I do a little drawing, but nothing on the scale of you. It'd take me a month to draw one character. I have drawn Venom, and it has taken me a whole month just to draw him out on a white piece of paper. Then I go back and inking. The inking part is what I love the best. I just love the inking. So, other than comic characters, I guess we've covered this. Do you draw? Do you draw much for like practice? Any scenery or trees, flowers or plants or anything like that? I mean, to warm up, to get going?
It goes back to just me being busy. I don't do hardly any drawings for myself. If I do a drawing for myself, it's a drawing that I think other people will like and will buy. So I consider myself, a commercial artist. I just draw for people, and I draw things that I think most people would like to buy. So, I just don't draw for myself.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. Do you remember the first comic book you bought?
I sure do. I still have it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was Amazing Spider-Man number 8.
Cool.
I paid a whole 12 cents for it, and I earned my own money to pay for those 12 cents. So back in the day, In the 60s, sodas were, pop bottles were in glass.
Yes.
So you'd get a penny if you bought a soda and returned the glass bottle. So I would, on my way to school, look around for a glass bottle because people littered. And I would put all these aside, and when I have, 12 or 13, I'd go buy a comic book. So it was Amazing Spider-Man #8. It's not in the greatest shape, but it's still a good reader copy, and I still have it.
Oh, it's a memory. It's a memory. That's what it comes. And me and you have something in common because when I was that age, I had pulled my wagon up and down the streets, and I'd find the Coke bottles and take them to the local supermarket or grocery store, and would trade them in for deposits. And when you found those big liter bottles back when they started making, that was the jackpot. Yeah. You got extra for those.
Yeah, no, I remember, and it's similar to stories from a lot of people. They mowed lawns, they did errands, they worked little odd jobs to get them money to buy them what they wanted, because they're wants, they're not needs, and their entertainment, and that's the way I got my money early on.
What about the first, I would say, comic book that you've drawn? I mean, other than unpublished, did you? I know when I was small, when I got into the drawing, I would take pieces of notebook paper and fold it over and draw the little boxes and try to create my own cartoon. When you were smaller, did you ever do anything like that?
Yeah. So after just drawing my own stuff, I used to draw recreations. So in the 60s, I would tape notebook paper together because that's all I had. I couldn't buy regular paper, art paper, no money. So just get notebook paper, tape 4 sheets together, make a big poster, and then recreate a Jack Kirby cover, a Jim Steranko cover.
Oh wow!
And then I would pencil them, ink them, and color them. I would color them with oil. So in hindsight, it wasn't a good idea to use oil paints on notebook paper. They just bleed all over the place. But I still have a couple of them from the 60s.
Oh, well, that is great. I know a lot of the guys out there watching have done this. I mean, if you're a big comic fan, you've always wanted to be an artist, and you just try this, and sometimes it works out, sometimes.
Yeah, and paper and art supplies were just things out of my reach. So sometimes for paper, it depends if my family would buy, packages that might have an insert in there. Hey, that was drawing paper. So I use that.
I used to take my test papers from school after they'd hand them back to you. I'd turn them on the back, and that's what I used to draw.
Yeah, nice, clean sheet of paper.
Nice, clean. Well, back to Venom. Let's ask this question. Venom, Texas barbecue or Memphis barbecue?
Born and raised in Texas, San Antonio for many, many decades. Now I'm out of Fort Worth. It would have to be, Texas barbecue. I've had it all over the state. It really never disappoints me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Texas barbecue is the best. That's what I think. Great state of Texas here. But not to criticize any of the Memphis people out there. I've had y'all's barbecue too, and I love the dry rubs y'all use up there. So on the Venom Lethal Protector cover, the drool that we seen coming out of the mouth of Venom is that an acid or some kind of weird enzyme or something? Can you kind of describe what that? I had a fan that wanted to know.
I just think it was just saliva. It just had a different color. I do remember the Alien movies, and anytime you see stuff, that's an influence.
Yes.
Whether subconscious or on purpose, anything you see, it will affect you. And I saw a lot of similarities in Venom, early on with the Alien movies. Yeah. Yep.
Well, if you could have complete creative control of Venom, would you change any direction or anything in the past that he's done?
There's so many options for Venom. He's an alien that can bond with a life entity. So you can take that anywhere. Marvel's done that with Flash Thompson. I thought that was pretty creative, and they got a lot of good stories with that, and that lasted for several years and many issues into the 40s. So I think the possibilities are just limitless.
Yeah, they've done the Venomized covers. I mean, there's a lot of those that are going around that every superhero, I think, has been Venomized. So, they're like you said, Venom has so many opportunities out there. I mean, I just can't wait for the future to see what comes next. If you could pick I think I know the answer to this. If you could pick a favorite Marvel villain, what would it be?
It's now Venom.
Yeah.
It's Venom. They have so many cool villains. When I grew up, it was Doctor Doom, Magneto, Submariner for a little while. It's just Venom. He's just now very, very iconic. I think more and more people are aware of him after 30 years.
Do you think that the Venom character may end up being sort of like a Submariner character, to where he's kind of an anti-hero? I mean, he goes back and forth.
Yeah, that's the feeling I got. Early on with the Fantastic Four, he had that character, to him. So in that regards, I think Venom is somewhat similar. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. What about your favorite DC character?
It would have to be all their iconic characters, and I got to work on them. I got to work on Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Hawkman, Hawkgirl, all those things. I grew up enjoying as a kid. So.
Yeah, they are awesome books. They've been around for years and years and years. Now, let's touch on a subject. Do you have any funny stories about Stan Lee or something that?
He never remembers my name.
Well, he doesn't remember mine. I almost gave him a coronary at a daggum convention.
Yeah, Sam who? No, I've met him, many, many times. Back then when he was, pre-movies, more approachable. He'd just walk around by himself. So I'd go introduce myself every single time I met him. I would reintroduce myself. So, he nodded. So I'm pretty sure he just didn't remember. And, since then, I've seen him at dozens and dozens of conventions. But, he's just so busy. And all I get to do is see him and wave. And I'm pretty sure he just doesn't remember me.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure, and it's a kind of shame. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from him as far as being big of a popular person that he is, but it's kind of shame that, you get shuffled away and you do. My eyes, I don't think it's not enjoyable now as it once was with him.
It's true. It's like a production line now, but, with the popularity that he has, that's just the way it turned out,
Yeah, it is. What about Wolverine? Any thoughts on Wolverine?
Super exciting character. I worked on X-Men and Wolverine as early as 1983 was my first work on that. I got to do work in X-Men Annual number 7.
Oh, wow.
So that had Wolverine, Storm, and a couple of other characters. So, just another exciting Marvel character.
Yeah, he had really tore it up in the 80s and 90s. I mean, he was on every cover, every book, sort of like that unmentioned person we won't mention, Deadpool. But Wolverine was everywhere. I mean, they just blew it up with him. And what if you could finish this sentence? What if Wolverine
had teamed up with Spider-Man? But it already happened, like you said, they use Wolverine everywhere. So there was a special book where he teamed up with Spider-Man. Now that's a book I would have wanted to work on, but I think the creators there were Mark Bright and Al Williamson, so two excellent artists. But yeah, I just like teaming up the characters with other characters that maybe are the opposite of them, and Spider-Man certainly is the opposite of Wolverine.
And that's where the Marvel Team Up series really began back then. I mean, they were taking low sales of other superheroes, and they were teaming them up with a popular Spider-Man. And when they put them in the Marvel Team Up book, they turned around and people bought those books and they said, wow, I'm going to check out Daredevil. He was with Spider-Man. And it kind of spin off and went to the Daredevil books, and, it upped the more printing run of the other books. People started buying.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. It got me to buy him because, if you like one character and he's in another book with another character, you're more likely to give it a try. And I think it's makes for great stories and great marketing.
Yeah, it did. It pulled me in. I got a ton of Marvel Team Up books. So what if Venom?
What if Venom had Spider-Man's cosmic powers? I worked on a book like that, except Spider-Man got the cosmic powers, but I think it would be cool if Venom got the cosmic powers. See what would happen, see where it would take him.
That would be sharp. Oh, man. Gosh, you just probably gave somebody a idea in their head out there somewhere. So, do you think Venom could survive in the DC universe, and who do you think he would probably team up with?
There are so many good writers that they would make it work. That's what I enjoy. Many writers have different influence, different slant on things, and like when people ask me, "Hey, who's going to win, this character or that character?" It depends on who's writing it. So yeah, you could lean it one way or another just as easily. So I think Venom could work in the DC universe, and would like to see him up against their major characters. So I think he'd be great.
All right, going back to when you first started out drawing, would you change anything that you did back then, knowing what you know now, as far as your style, or maybe skip this class or not work as much on this, or?
I just thinking back, I think I should have studied more. When I had the time, because once you start working, then it's just work. It's just work. Yeah. But early on, I would have had the time to have studied, hit the anatomy books more, do some life drawing, draw from nature, all those things. But I just, learned that as I went along, on the job training.
Yeah. Well, there you hear it. I mean, get you some college classes and learn how to draw. Anatomy is a big thing in the books, because all the heroes now, they wear all the skin tight stuff, and you need to show the muscles and and such. And that would be that's a great way of telling everybody that's what you need to do.
That's true, and a lot of influences are also from films. Films and directors and lighting, the film noir movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The Alfred Hitchcock movies, exciting superhero and transformer movies. The point of view of the camera, all that stuff are things to learn from.
Yeah, you're exactly right. As a seasoned artist, do you see any of the upcoming Let me put this another way. Do you see any upcoming artists that are just waiting in the shadows right now that you think are fixing to bust out and just surprise us all?
Like I said, I occasionally pick up comic books and I look at them, and I just see a whole lot of talent out there. I think it just takes the right character and situation for these artists to really explode. But there's just so many of them. Both Marvel and DC, they have a variety of artists that draw in different styles, from cartoony to very realistic artwork. So it's just going to take one little thing, one property, something to just propel them up towards the top.
So what you're saying is the right mixture, the right team in place, and then from there it's history.
Exactly.
All right. It says if in your time of leisure, you've got to have time of leisure. In your time of leisure, what do you find yourself doing?
I like to go to the gym, throw a basketball around, play a little bit. So that's what I've done, since the '60s when I'm not drawing and stuff. I like to play basketball. I like to be in a good gym, shoot around, play a little bit. I enjoy that, and that's helped me keep me in shape.
Well, maybe you can get a hold of Mark Cuban, and you can go up and play the Bulls up there. Or no, not the Bulls. It's the Mavericks.
Yeah.
The Mavericks up there in Dallas, and we could see that.
Yeah, that'd be so nice. I wish they were fans, and I would get a chance to be on their court. That'd be great.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be awesome to see Sam out there. All right. If you could put together a dream team, editor, writer, of course you being the artist, colorist and such, can you name those?
Sure. I like Roy Thomas as an editor. So I worked under Roy Thomas on books he edited and books he wrote, and he hired me to work on his material. So I thought that was a prestige situation. Roy Thomas has been around since the '60s. He was Stan Lee's right-hand man right after, the superheroes hit it big in the early '60s. Roy came around like the mid '60s. So I would definitely pick Roy Thomas, editor, writer. And of course, one of the artists that I grew up as a little kid, kind of like maybe a Jack Kirby or a Steve Ditko. But I did get to work with Steve Ditko one time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the early 80s, 1983, for the company called Red Circle. It was a Archie Comics imprint that released superheroes. So I worked on a very short story with Steve Ditko. I not only finished his artwork, but I also lettered the book. So I really enjoyed that.
Did you ever get to meet him personally?
Steve Ditko is the co-creator of Spider-Man with
Yes.
Stan Lee, and I was in the Marvel offices in the mid '80s, meeting people there by invitation. I got flown to Marvel, worked in the bullpen, and I saw Steve Ditko, but I had already read that he likes to keep to himself, and he's not much for interacting with fans. So I didn't even go up to him and say hello. In hindsight, I wish I would have done it. I'm sure he would have been cordial and said hello, how you doing, but I just didn't even do that. So to this day, I missed my opportunity, but I got to see him. Right in the Marvel offices, so that was pretty cool.
And that's a rare thing because, after he left Marvel, he just kept to himself all the way up until the end, may he rest in peace. And there's very few pictures, even sightings of him, over the years. And he great. He started it all in the books, the art with Spider-Man and all the great villains that he had sat there and drawn in the Spider-Man book.
Yeah, he was turning in work to my editor, and when I went to talk to my editor, I talked about Steve Ditko. He said, "Yeah, that was Steve. Came in, turned in some work, picked up some work, and he was gone." So it was him. So.
Wow. Well, you do more. Do you do more inking than the pencil or art? And why inking?
Yeah, most of my work for comics is inking other people's pencils. But there's a percentage of that where I got layouts. So when you get layouts, they're not finished drawings. You have to finish the drawing in pencil first because it's not complete just to finish the drawing in ink. There's a lot more decisions to make, a lot of detail, a lot of just drawing. So I did a bit of that, but not as much as inking people's work. But even in the course of inking, I'd contribute by trying to, make things better, fix things, make things more entertaining, make things more exciting. So I always kept that in mind. What can I add to this scene? What's going on in this scene so people can understand it and still be entertained by it and not bored?
So I found that when I do my I'll throw this out there, amateur inking. When I ink over, you can bring out more of the 3D, the shadowing, and you can fix the mistakes that I made on my pencil drawing, and you can just emphasize the character more through the inking. That's why I enjoy inking more. It makes it, you can make it pop.
Yeah, it's a contribution to the artwork. The comic books are a collaboration, between artists, and you have the final say on the look of the work. So it's important stuff.
Yeah, I mean, some of the inking, the inking that he does is just out of this world. Okay, can you list, short list, not very long, some of the X-Men that you've done?
Yeah, my X-Men work is probably limited to a handful, so not hard to do, X-Men Annual number 7. What If X-Men books. One of them had Phoenix, the other one was What If the X-Men, Dr. X had died, I believe.
I got that book.
And another one was an X-Men story in a book that also featured the first appearance of Squirrel Girl.
Oh, wow, Squirrel. Well, me and old Squirrel Girl, I tell you what, we won't get into that. But you do, let's talk about some of the stuff you do now. You do commissions, and people contact you and you go out and you do commissions. Can you elaborate on that and tell us kind of what to expect when, if someone walks up and talks to you, how to approach you on that?
Yeah, they just ask me in person or through my Facebook page, and it starts there. Yeah.
And we will put the Facebook page. It's artist Sam De La Rosa at Facebook.com, right?
Yeah, it's just one complete long run-on word. Artist Sam De La Rosa.
Yeah, and you need to go check out his Facebook page, and if you got a commission or a sketch or something that you want him to do, just hit him up. I mean, you've seen the pictures. You'll see it on my side of all his work, and I'm sure you got it in books. And go hit Sam up because he does wonderful commissions and stuff. I just love his art. Is there anything you would like to say?
Yeah, just people can get a hold of me there. They can Google me also in person. So, just drop me a line.
Well, that'll do it right here. We the exclusive with Sam De La Rosa, and y'all get out there and y'all see that Venom movie. Awesome movie. And Sam, if you haven't got the Lethal Protector, pick it up. It's in the stores, and you got to have it. So with that, it's Mr. White Gloves and
Sam De La Rosa.
We're out of here.